All right, yo, just because we didn't screw something up doesn't mean something might not have gone wrong this week. So here's your Tuesday morning tech tip with Pugliese Speed Shop. All right, guys, so lately I've been saying, mainly on these tech tips, about us screwing something up, right? And I say that for a couple of reasons. Um, Number one, that's usually how you learn stuff, right? You do something wrong, and then, you know, you figure it out and you pass that word on so the next guy that you're talking to, he can make new and interesting mistakes instead of the same one you just made. So that's the one reason I do it. And we started the whole tech tip thing, if you guys remember. When we swapped the motor out in John's truck, we found some things wrong. We passed those along. Things we did wrong, things that were broken when we got them, whatever it might be. That's usually how these tech tips come about. This week's tech tip is kind of in the same realm. Nobody screwed nothing up. Well, I'll let you guys watch it and you decide.
Good afternoon, everybody. Kevin here again. Chaz has been busting my chops because I've been doing a lot of work in the garage and I haven't been sharing. So I'm going to share what I did today. Not a lot, just a little bit. So obviously the FXR is on the lift because she's angry and she's always broken. So here we are. So the story goes, the girlfriend wanted to take the FXR out and go for a ride because she's been wanting to ride her for a while. No, we won't talk about that or that right now. We'll just pretend like that doesn't exist. So anyway, she takes it out, gets about 4 miles away, meets another one of her girlfriends at a restaurant. They stop to meet up and get ready to leave, and she goes to start it, won't start, just turns over, backfires, sputters. I'm like, okay. So she calls me, and I go retrieve her. Long story short, go to start it. Won't really start. It wants to, but it won't. So long story short, we put her on a trailer, get it home, and I say, well, you know, her being a girl, I was kind of stereotyping her, thinking maybe she didn't ride it angry, because this bike, you have to ride it angry, because otherwise the carburetor loads up and, you know, it starts blowing smoke. You got to keep it wound up pretty tight. So thinking that's what it was, we came home and I said, all right, well, you follow the plugs, you got to buy some plugs and we'll put some plugs in it and that'll fix it. So I pulled the plugs out. Of course, they were fuel fouled pretty bad, and thinking pretty confidently that we put the plugs in it would be good to go. It did not. Put the plugs in it, went to fire it up, and it blew like two big old flame balls out, probably about, I don't know, 18 inches out of the pipe. It was enough to burn the hair off that leg, but anyway, I was like, all right, obviously we're dealing with something a little more than fouled plugs. So it's got ignition, it wants to fire, it's just not firing at the right time. So what I did was pull apart the ignition cone. And on these old Evos, I mean, they're no more complicated than your like 350 Chevy and your old hot rod. And all they do is, like, this is electronic ignition. You know, if I can get it out of the way. And how it works is they have this little cup with a little 8mm bolt that bolts to the end of the crankshaft. And on this it has two little knockouts. And when it goes through these right here, it picks it up, and that's when it knows how to fire. And you can see the slides where you can slide it back and forth to adjust the timing. Well, those bolts were tight, so I know it wasn't misadjusted or come loose so that the electronic unit was moving. So I went a little further, looked in here. Sure enough, this cup, this rotor, this bolt was loose, and this was just spinning. I was like, all right, well, that's the problem. But if you look at it on the inside, how it works, you see the little keyway on that shaft? Well, there's a little keyway on the inside of the cup that matches that. But if you notice, there's nothing on it. There's nothing to catch that keyway, because it had broken off Sorry, my cinematography is a little off today. On the end of this magnet, let's see if I can get it to focus. You see that? That's that little keyway. Or that little key that's supposed to be in that keyway. And if you look at the bolt, get it to focus here. Come on. Maybe not. Is that it? Oh, close. So you can see the bolt's kind of boogered up, which tells me the bolt came loose first, and then the rotor was spinning on it, or at least vibrating on it, and then it broke that little tab. So I have a new one on the way. This setup, $5.99 on J&P Cycles, and they'll ship it to me for a mere $7.99. At least it wasn't more expensive, and we'll be back on the road. But there she is. Little content for you, Chaz. Not exciting. Maybe even a tech tip. I don't know. Tech tip is don't buy an Ultima engine for your Harley because they're garbage. Buy the S&S. Spend the extra money. Don't be cheap like me. Spend the extra $2 or $3 grand and get the motor that's going to run forever and treat you well. Because this one, and if we're putting a beer scale to this, if you don't know what you're looking for, the troubleshooting could have been a little complicated, but the actual work, I give it a 1 out of 6 beers. We're talking about 5 screws, and she'll be back together. Minimal parts. Yeah. Maybe 3/4 of a beer out of 6 on the difficulty scale. Not even quite a full beer. But if you have any questions, don't ask me. I'm not a professional. I just muddle through this business. As always, be good to each other.
Well, Kevin, I have been on him. I have been on him a little bit. He's done a ton of work to that Road Glide, and he ain't been showing none of it. But we're going to make that up, I promise. So we'll push that to the side for right now. And let's talk about that FXR. Don't worry about the part that, those dents perfectly match the one on my. Don't worry about that either. Again, we'll push that to the side. He has been having, he built that bike from the ground up. When I say ground up, he had a frame and like a pile of parts. Legit, no exaggeration. That's what he had. And it came with a motor, but he didn't know what was, anything about it. And to be quite honest, a lot of the stuff that came with that bike wasn't very good. He dealt with a lot of issues. So rather than, dive into that, he said, I'm gonna buy a crate motor. Solid plan. And you guys know I don't like to spend a lot of money. I'd have done the same thing. As he was building it, not we all, because I don't ever talk like that, but a lot of people were saying, get the S&S. And I was surprised he didn't, because if you look at that bike, it's got the best of everything. And that's just what Kevin does. But he's like, man, I could buy 3 of these motors for one S&S. He's probably a little bit, facetious, but he was trying to think a little bit thrifty because, like every project, he was way over budget and tried to, make up a little bit of money where he could. Still got a 107 in it. The thing's still got amazing compression, and it gets it. There's no question about it. But some parts, that's what happens, right? I told a similar story about my father's vet. He had, same thing. He would get the best of everything. And ignition coil. Well, it wasn't even a coil. I think it was like ignition module. The little plastic piece like this big, cost like $15. Got him straight on the side of the road. He ended up having the car towed. He didn't have time to mess with it, and it cost him $150 for a $15 part. In Kevin's case, luckily she wasn't far away, and Kevin's got, he's got the knowledge on how to troubleshoot that. So troubleshooting is huge, and you got to narrow it down. It's just, if you don't know, ask somebody that does, because that's where you're going to pay for stuff. Now, newer stuff, they plug things in, everything's computer, whatever. But old stuff, like an Evo, even though it's a brand new motor, old technology, it's the way to go. But I got something for Kevin. Here's a tech tip for him. Well, first off, if you guys don't know Kevin, not the most patient guy, because 2 days ago he said, "Hey, can you see if you got one of those cups?" He gave me a whole box of parts, right? FXR stuff, and well, a couple boxes, and I still got the yellow one. I'll get it back to you, Kevin. I didn't forget. But he said, "Hey, can you check and see if I had a cup in there?" I said, "Yeah, I'll check." Before I could even got home to check, I had this video sent to me, so he didn't wait. And the tech tip I got for Kevin, besides, settle down, because that's not going to happen, would be before you order something and pay like $8 shipping, ask your buddy if he happens to be a gold member at J&P Cycles. Probably could have got it for free. Thanks for watching, guys.